should have had a notification there that it's recording. So yeah, today we're joined by Leeds City Council. We're joined by Hannah and we are joined by Heather. And they will be talking about creative industries and culture in Leeds City region. So if I hand over to you, have a great session.
That's great. Hi, I'm Hannah. Heather, could you just keep an eye out in case people do put anything into chat and just sort of give me a shout, because the view I've got my Zoom on means I may not clock if people are asking questions. Please do interact. It's a bit random not being able to see people's faces, so if you would like to come out of your box, then do, but you're welcome to sort of hide behind, otherwise I'll just have to look at Heather's face, which is very pleasant to look at. So I'm Hannah Farley. I'm a Principal Officer in the Culture Programmes team for Leeds City Council, and I will go on to explain more about what our team does shortly, but I'll let Heather introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Heather Moss. I am a project support assistant in the Culture Programmes department, and I'm like a kickstart placement coming to the end of my 6 months as well.
Thanks, Heather. So I've asked Heather to join me this afternoon to just share her perspective. She's had this 6-month placement with us in our team. She'll be able to kind of give you a little bit of insight into things that she's discovered, and just the perspective of someone that's slightly younger than I am, starting out in a career in the creative industries. So the Culture Programmes team is relatively new within Leeds City Council. It's only been in existence in the last year, but it's been an amalgamation of what were other existing teams. So our bigger team comprises the Leeds Inspired team, the Arts at Leeds team, and the Leeds Culture Strategy team. What we can do is put some links into the chat for you to kind of find out more about all of these aspects, but I'll just talk so that you can go directly to websites and so on, because that's also really useful. And what our team does is quite varied. As Heather can testify to, it sort of changes from week to week, but basically our core function is the backbone of the strategy for culture for the city. We're a funding provider, and we support artist development across the city as well. So in terms of the Leeds Culture Strategy, that was written and approved by the council in 2017. It runs up until 2030. It was co-created, so Leeds was quite unique in the way that that was produced, in terms of working with all different people across the city to pull together an interactive strategy. And we're kind of in a delivery phase of that at the moment. That was actually produced as part of what was originally hoped to be a bid for European Capital of Culture, which is due to take place next year in 2023. But because of Brexit, actually Leeds was unable to continue to apply to be part of that. So I'll come on to talk about what's happening in 2023 a little bit later as we kind of continue to talk to you. But the culture strategy itself was a core part of that application process, which is why it was refreshed at that time. And that's the city's commitment to the way that we want to work and provide culture across the city to all different people and celebrate as many aspects of it as possible. So if you're at all interested in cultural policy or taking a look at it as a document, I'd encourage you to have a look on the website and just get a bit of background knowledge, because that's the council's core commitment to culture across the city. Hello, a friendly face, welcome. I'm not talking into the Zoom void. So that's culture strategy. So that's something that I work on a little bit. There are aspects of my role that you possibly would have no kind of thoughts about, that you maybe didn't realise that we needed to do. So we have 99 elected members across Leeds, and each of those elected members represents an area, and they are obviously voted to take that role. And so it's our job within our team to communicate with them and to keep them informed of different aspects of what is happening across the city to do with culture. So on any given day, I might be writing letters of support for an organisation. I might be briefing an elected member on something that's happening in their local board. We might be asking them to give a presentation or represent the city locally, nationally, internationally, and writing things that help them with script. So there's a very varied role in that respect. But moving on to other aspects of the wider team, I mentioned Arts at Leeds. So that's part of our cultural investment programme. The Arts at Leeds team fund arts organisations across the city and support them to deliver things across each of those wards that I mentioned. And so there's a team that are very busy dealing with funding for them and supporting them, and they go out and sort of help by sitting on boards. They give advice, we help to connect to other funding opportunities, and we represent their work and let other people and other places know about it. So communications is a kind of core strand of what everybody needs to be involved in. And then the third sort of part of our triangle is the Leeds Inspired team. And I'd really, really encourage you to find out about Leeds Inspired if you haven't come across them already. They've got different strands to the work that they do. There's a What's On guide, a really comprehensive website, which is very not local authority, and that's why it's brilliant. It's designed by young people that are out and about doing their own design work. They are very interested in communicating with people to get feedback on the way that that works. They want it to be as accessible as possible. And the What's On guide also has a blog, which people like Heather have contributed to let you know about projects that are going on in a bit more in depth, give you more detail. It's a great resource. It pulls through to loads of other places. If you're at all techie, they tell me that, which I'm not, I should just say, there's API business that happens, which means that if you are hosting an event yourself, if you want to set up something and run it, if you can go onto the website, you can input your details and promote your own event, and that gets pulled through to all sorts of different websites, which means that the potential traffic and people that can view what event you're running is big. So it's great. It's a really brilliant resource. And just to find out what's going on in the city for yourself, if you're interested in sort of consuming and participating in cultural activities, it's really, really good. They've also got a grants programme. Particularly of interest to people like yourselves might be the small grants programme. If you're considering either you're currently interested or starting to set yourself up running some projects, or you've got an aspiration to run them in the future, then that's a brilliant resource to take a look at. At the moment, there are grant panels and we meet regularly. So I'm one of the grant panel assessors. And basically you can have a grant surgery if you've got a project idea and you're not sure if it's the funding for you. You can find out more about what the sort of requirements are and get some advice and help, which is really brilliant. And often when people are starting out and delivering their own projects, the Leeds Inspired funding is a really good place to start because it's very much about the city, and it can help with getting match funding from other sources such as the Arts Council or other bigger organisations across the city. And something that the Arts at Leeds strand of our team does is they can also signpost you to other areas where you might be looking for funding. We've got a really comprehensive document in the city and a website with funding opportunities, so that's really useful. Heather, shall I bring you in to talk?
Yeah, it was just we've had a question in the chat about how the funding works and if the funding and grants are ongoing or if people can apply at any time. And
yeah, okay, sorry. Hang on. Right, so no, I'll deal with that one. Yeah, so the Arts at Leeds. So the Arts at Leeds funding is a kind of locked-in programme, and that's something that organisations and small-scale sort of practitioners can apply for, but that only gets released every few years. The Leeds Inspired funding is a rolling programme. It has been increased because of the pandemic, so it was going to every month for the small grants, mostly throughout the year for 10 months of the year, but it's dropping back a tiny bit again to sort of bi-monthly. But it rolls on through the year. So if your project isn't quite ready for the next round, then you can wait and go for a later round. All the information about it is always up to date on the website. So we will post that in the chat. Did I answer that? Anything else, Heather? No? Okay. Heather, I don't know if you want to sort of jump in here and just talk a little bit about your experience of coming into our team and what have you discovered? What have you found out about Leeds that you had no idea existed?
It's been amazing coming into the team, really. So I'm from Leeds and I love Leeds. Like, I'm very happy to be from here. And I always loved it because I felt that it had so much to offer in so many different capacities. But working as part of the culture programs team, I've realized not only is there even more than I could have possibly thought there was going on at all times, but it's also diverse and so interesting. And there's so much work going on to make this happen. Because on a base level, you see, like, say you go in to watch someone perform, obviously you have the performers, you have the crew, you have the set, you have the stage hands and managers and stuff like that. But then it goes all the way to the people that originally like commissioned the venue that far back. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've had the opportunity to work on so many different kinds of projects. Like, we were just talking about the funding, and I've had the opportunity to sit on some of like the funding panels, and it was so interesting to see what people are working on. These are people's like own personal projects and dreams sometimes, like, and it's really nice to kind of be part of the process that allows that to happen. I think it's just been a learning experience in so many ways. I also got the opportunity to like be involved with some of the National Poetry Centre things, which is really interesting because that's all the way at the concept development. So it's really great in a creative role, even though I'm not the person responsible for being creative in the sense of I'm not creating the art. I still get to see an entire process of creativity unfold and be a part of it. And it's just been a really great experience with so many opportunities. And I'm like really thankful. So thanks, Hannah.
I can't take credit for it. It's I think the council as an organisation is a massive employer. And Heather and I were talking about this before, actually, that there are so many different ways in. There are so many different roles that you possibly don't even think of, and that it is really possible to use creative skills in all sorts of different roles. So although we currently are working in a team that has culture in its title, there are loads of different opportunities, and it's really worth keeping an eye out and signing yourself up to the website to look for job opportunities, because what can start as a casual or a temporary position can often lead to experience that can get you to something else. And we'll come on and talk a little bit more about that later, because I know Heather's got some great experience of kind of keeping in touch with potential places for jobs. But it is really worth signing up to. And as an employer, obviously, because it's such a large organisation in the city, there are lots of other benefits that you can get from being an employee in a large organisation. So speaking as somebody that used to be a freelancer, and I've worked in all sorts of different scale organisations, some of which have been international, some of which have been abroad, there's different things in different places for you. So as you are kind of approaching or have already finished, in terms of studying, looking at next steps, that there are actually loads of different opportunities with a big employer like the council. But that also makes it slightly difficult for people to navigate and potentially not realise the amount of different teams and opportunities that there are to connect with people. So, please do keep in touch with us. You can always ask questions of us, and I'm quite active on Twitter. My handle is Falster, @Falster, FARLESTER. I quite often post opportunities or retweet what's going on. And I'd say using social media is a really good way to find out what is happening across the city, because a lot of the organisations, and when you sort of start to find out who some of the influencer people are, and then you can follow them to obviously find out a little bit more about what's going on. So I've touched on Leeds 2023, and so we were unable to apply to have sort of the European Capital of Culture, unfortunately, but Leeds actually voted to go for it under its own steam anyway, which I think is a very Leeds thing to do. And so there's going to be a celebration year next year, which starts in January. You may have seen some of the things already out and about. There's lots of road shows happening around the city at the moment. There are loads of opportunities coming up with it. There will be a lot of opportunities to be participants, to be audience members, to be out and about doing loads of stuff. There's going to be some quite exciting things that will all get unveiled in the autumn. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed yet to say some of the things that are coming, but there's a real variety of stuff throughout the year. Some of those are going to be really large scale, massive international events, and some of those will be very small scale, local, celebrating what people do creatively in their own time. There are various different opportunities. So I would have a look at the website, the Leeds 2023 website, because there's jobs that come up attached to it. There will be kind of temporary jobs as well, nearer to actual delivery of the events, and there'll be things like events type roles that will come up. So if you're interested in getting experience, that's a really good place to kind of be looking to. We're really fortunate because West Yorkshire is actually right in the middle of this amazing kind of influx of opportunity, and the next few years across West Yorkshire, not just in Leeds. So we're obviously kind of building up to our celebration year that's going to happen, and there's significant investment that's been put in by both the council but also large funding organisations. But regionally, that's also happening in loads of different places that neighbour onto Leeds. And perhaps as part of your kind of studying, you may not be from Leeds, and you maybe haven't ventured particularly far outside of Leeds itself, but there are loads of different opportunities that are currently happening and that will be happening in our neighbouring like towns and areas. So there's going to be Kirklees, they're having a year of music, so there'll be lots of things going on there. That's happening in 2024. Wakefield, no, that's 2023, sorry. Wakefield and Calderdale are also having years of culture, and those are both in 2024. And then Bradford is going to be City of Culture in 2025, which is really amazing news for this area, because particularly between Bradford and Leeds, lots of creative people tend to go between the two. People commute and work in the opposite sort of ones, and so there will be a huge amount of investment in the creative sector in Bradford, which is really excellent for Leeds creatives because it means that they can easily kind of travel between. There'll be a lot of great things happening. So in terms of you as audience members, that's great. And it just makes our whole region much more vibrant and brings to the attention of other people what opportunities there are. And so I feel like if you're looking with a view to like whether, if you're not from Leeds, or whether you're kind of thinking, do I stay here when I finish, or I've finished and I've been here for a while and I'm not sure what's next, there's definitely plenty of things that are coming, more so than there has been. And given that we're coming out of a pandemic, which has been particularly difficult for the cultural sector, I think it's really exciting times. So there's loads of things that are going on in a way that I've been based up here for about 15 years now. I've never kind of felt the energy that's coming, so that's really, really good. I'd encourage you to kind of keep your eyes peeled and get involved in as many things as you can. And also, if you're not sure about what your next steps are and you don't know whether you want to have a definite job within the cultural sort of sector, think about what skill set you've got or what you do in your own time. It may not even be part of your course, that actually you can demonstrate as really good skills in terms of getting a job, because creative thinking is really, really important and valuable, and flexibility and resilience, as we've all seen through the pandemic, all of those things are going to be vital in the future for people to be able to kind of quickly move and sort of pivot into slightly different ways of working. All of those things are very valuable skills. Heather, do you want to talk a little bit about casual jobs and that sort of setup?
Yeah, definitely. So inside of like working or doing your degree, you know, like studying and stuff, there's a lot of the times I feel like you have an expectation to have a bit of experience, but you have so much going on with what you're doing just to, you know, finish your degree or go into work so you can pay your bills, that it can be a bit difficult to figure out the best way to get some forms of experience. But one thing that I found really useful is like casual work. So like Leeds City Council offer a range of like casual kind of work where you are in pools, and then from that pool you can go and work things like Light Night and the film festival and the International Beer Festival and things like that. So they do it with like, that's arts events and venues, and their casual work is very much kind of like managing the areas of the festival, like coordinating volunteers and stuff like that. So you're out at these events, like so you're seeing a lot of film, but you're also getting used to like the event setting, and that happens a lot like with creative things, like that you're obviously got like experience with Light Night, which is more of an art festival, and then as I say, there's like the beer festival and stuff. But they also have casual roles with like the Breeze team, for example. I don't know if anyone knows what Breeze is, but it's like a child's festival sort of. It's like in summer, I remember it from being a kid, and there's lots of like events and it's lots of fun, and you can be like one of the Breeze team, so just casual work during the summer, like it's either working with the children doing like activities and stuff, or you get like the Breeze musicians and actors and stuff. These roles are paid roles, but they're casual roles, so it's not like a firm contract. Thanks for asking, sorry if I didn't make that clear. It's a case of you have a job, but you don't have specific hours a week. You work when the work kind of comes, because the festivals are only on at certain points in the year. But it's also like in kind of like with the heritage sites like Temple Newsham and stuff like that, they have them there too. So whether you kind of looking for sort of more museums through to like theatre on stage with the kids to like the film festivals and stuff, there's a big range with the council. But outside the council, there's also some, like I was just looking at one myself the other day for Ilkley Literature Festival, being a stage manager for that and things. So a lot of the time it's worth looking at these kind of individual events and festivals and things like that, and seeing if you can get work for those specific times, because a lot of the time it takes a lot of people to make something come together. And like we were saying, Hannah, when you said about Leeds 2023, there'll probably be more kind of temporary work when it comes to the time. So sometimes it's just come now and we can pay for this. But with Leeds City Council, it's very much like a process of you get it put into a pool of people, and then from that people are offered the work. And it's also great because say you have a deadline or you've got to work a shift or something that day, you can say, oh no, sorry, I'm unavailable, but you will still be contacted in future, because it works both ways. Like it considers the availability for both people, because it is just a casual role. So they can be really useful and helpful, and a great way to gain experience, and also just some more money as well.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, so I should say, although I talked a little bit about our actual team that we're based in, there's an enormous culture service in the council. So Heather's touched on it. But there are all the museums and gallery sites that are across the city. So as she's saying, there's kind of casual opportunities for many of those sites. Also, although it's not quite in the same part of the council, we've got an enormous library service. And I can talk a little bit more about some of the creative and business potential things that you can kind of get to do through the library service. We've got the film festival, beer festival, like Heather's saying, there's a lot of festivals, there's lots of young people focused activity which is delivered through that Breeze team, but also through various other teams. There's Child Friendly Leeds, which is an enormous kind of setup. Leeds is really good for youth voice, so if you're at all interested in anything creative with young people, there's loads of opportunities to do that. And there are also loads of arts organisations in the city that work with children and young people as well. So it's a real strength area for the city. So if that is your passion, then there are loads of ways that we can connect you to that. So yeah, there's absolutely tons of things. And Light Night is one of the biggest events that happens every year. But there's also things like Holocaust Memorial Day. Then there's music. There's a whole music summer series of like gigs that go on in Millennium Square, things where there's the background events team who support things like Radio 2 that are coming to Temple Newsam and taking over for a weekend in the autumn. There's loads of stuff like that that goes on. And some major partnerships also take place with some of the other like bigger arts organisations in the city as well. So there is loads of stuff, and that's just within the council itself. Any other questions on that bit before I move on? Looking good. Okay. So Heather's been talking about paid roles, but there are volunteer opportunities as well. So Light Night always has volunteer opportunities. If you're looking, one, to just get involved in, meet new people, build some of your skills up and have it on your CV without the commitment of having to actually go for a job, then volunteering is something that's really worthwhile looking at. And Leeds is also really good at like, we've got a really coordinated volunteer set up across the city. Some of you may have already kind of heard a bit more about that in like a talk that was available earlier this week. But if you're new to that and you haven't come across it, I've already put in the chat, there's Doing Good Leeds, which is our kind of like volunteer coordination point. And like Heather's saying, there are opportunities to volunteer all across. So Leeds 2023 will want to host loads of events, and they will want volunteers as well as having paid opportunities. So again, if it's something that you want to try and get a bit more experience in, but maybe you don't feel like at this point you've got enough experience to actually go for a job doing it, then I'd encourage you to kind of sign up to all sorts of newsletters and things across the city. So a good website, Fertile, is a really good idea, and you can kind of find out about more organisations who you might want to volunteer with by looking at the Leeds Inspired website and just do a bit of a trawl and kind of find some of the things that you're interested in, and then look at the websites of some of those organisations, because you'll find all sorts of stuff that you possibly weren't aware existed in the city. It's good to go through something where there's a formal volunteer programme if you're new to volunteering, because you'll be supported to do that. Usually it means you get training and you get support and so on, rather than, I wouldn't sort of advocate particularly for directly approaching smaller organisations, because they don't have the capacity to take on people just because, you know, they're already sort of delivering at their sort of full remit. But there are so many opportunities. And again, with things like Bradford 2025 coming, you know, if you're building up some skills for events, for example, now, then there's the possibility of you going, if you're interested in it, and actually going for a proper full-on job when those jobs start to become available in Bradford, and they're starting to like release things already. So again, it's thinking forward to what types of things you might be interested in. And there are really plenty of different things across all the different sectors. There's, you know, performance, spoken word and literature. There's a festival for pretty much everything you can think of that happens at any point throughout the year in the city. And so it's you know, just get involved in things basically. So not everything has to be about employment, although like Heather's saying, paying your bills is really a useful thing. We thought we might talk to you a little bit about Leeds Libraries as well. If you're not connecting already with the library service, it's a massive one compared to many other authorities, and it's all across the city, particularly in the central library, which is next to the art gallery. There's a whole floor that's an arts focused floor. They've got a music library there, which is currently being refurbished. So there's going to be even more facilities in there, including recording booths that people can use. We can talk to you about Studio 12, which is like the jewel in the crown. There's also a performance and art space, which is on that first floor in Central Library, room 700, which I used to programme. That has a year-round sort of load of activities, from author visits to theatre performances. It's a space where people can come and try scratch performance of work that they're doing. The library is really open to conversations with different people. And at the other end of that floor, there's an amazing art library, which is the biggest, certainly in the region, and I think possibly it's one of the biggest ones in the UK, which has so many beautiful books in terms of visual arts, and that's an amazing research place, but it also has a facility part of it which is called the drawing room, where they run loads of creative workshops, and often those are delivered by external artists, and it's a really great place to go and kind of research and then have a practical sort of opportunity to actually develop a project idea. So I'd also take a look at the drawing room and at Central Library if you haven't already done so. Heather, do you want to talk a little bit about what your experience of Studio 12 is?
Yeah, so I was actually speaking about Studio 12 because it's great in all respects, because I was talking about it, like, I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with it, but even if you aren't, I think, Hannah, did you put a link in the chat? That website, before we even get to Studio 12 itself, the website is such an amazing resource that's so well done. So they've got like sections on music, film, writing guides, things like that. And it has everything from like careers advice to grant opportunities. And this is like pretty much for anything you can apply. Some are specific to the city, but also like further out and abroad and things. And there's just so much there that I really do think that it's worth having a look through, because I was, in my research that I was putting together, I learned a lot from that, because it's very thorough and it's got everything from ways to help you improve, volunteer opportunities, like paid opportunities, grant schemes. Like, I just think it's definitely worth it. And Studio 12 itself, I haven't used personally. I've visited it while I've been there, and it's something that I think is really good, because we were talking, me and Hannah, a bit ago, about how that's something that has quite a bit of a broader age range, and because you get to the end of university and you kind of think you have so many opportunities as like a young person and as a student, they get thrown at you. I don't think you realize till after like how much that kind of seems to fall away a little bit, because you kind of get to like 24 or 25 and then it's like, oh well, you've done it, you're on your own now. But it provides a space for people up to like 30, and it's just like a great creative space and a place that, yeah, it just provides for a little bit longer, which I think as you come to the end of things, you can have a bit of a panic, can't you? So it's good to know that there's still some places and opportunities and spaces as you kind of go on.
Thanks, Heather. It's a great facility. They've got a green screen there if you want to go and get headshots taken, or if you're interested in photography, you can use the green screen and do all sorts of stuff against the backdrop. There's a recording like sound booth so that you can do voiceover stuff, or if you're wanting to produce your own music. They've got so much tech stuff in terms of music production. And then they can support with sort of video production as well. So, but they also then, if you're interested in writing, they quite often run programs that you can apply to be part of. And many of those have got, if they don't usually pay you to participate, but they cover travel expenses and quite often have things like food as part of it. So again, that's really helpful if you're struggling but want to sort of build your skills up a bit. And they've done some amazing partnerships in the past with like Radio 1 Extra and some other like large national sort of spoken word organisations. They did a collaboration with the Roundhouse in London a few years ago, so young people were able to kind of exchange between, you know, so it really is worth having a look, because there's something for most people. And like Heather's saying, it's up to 30, and with the expansion of what they're doing with the music library on that floor, even if you're older than 30, you'll still be able to use some of those facilities, because they're going to sort of duplicate them and make them more widely available, which is brilliant. So I would really encourage you, if you've never set foot inside of Central Library in particular, because you'll have your own brilliant libraries attached to campus, go and have a look, because obviously it's totally free to use a lot of these facilities. And the other thing in terms of Central Library, they've got the Business and Information Centre. So I put a link in the chat, which is BIPC, which is Business Information and Patents Centre. Really sexy. That is an amazing facility, all free. They give you one-to-one business advice. If you're an inventor and you've come up with an innovative idea, they can help you look at getting it patented. They can do searches for you. So they've got access to loads of different websites and catalogues that often have a paywall attached to them, and they can help you to access that information for free. You can go and get signed up to, they run a lot of events about setting yourself up as a freelancer, so you can find out about how to market yourself, how to, if you're a maker and you want to put stuff on Etsy or other sites, then they can help you to look at pricing and getting your sort of name out there, social media stuff, you name it. They've probably got an activity that supports it. There's also a sort of Wi-Fi enabled, well, the whole library's got Wi-Fi anyway, but they've got a hot desking area that's brand new up on the second floor of Central Library. So if you want to go and sort of set yourself up there for a little while, if you're trying to set up yourself as sort of in a bit of an entrepreneurial way, they've got loads of facilities there that are absolutely brilliant, and just so much advice, all for free, because the staff are super knowledgeable. So basically you can just go in with a query and they'll help you to answer that query. You can get legal advice on stuff, all sorts of things. So I really would recommend that if you're interested in looking at working as a freelancer and then sort of doing that behind the scenes, building your business side of stuff. There's loads of opportunities through that. So yeah, we've probably done a big shout out for the libraries. And then the last thing that we were just going to come on to talk to you about is something that's in the planning at the moment, but one to look out for the autumn, to get yourself signed up to when the information becomes available, so that you are kind of the first to know about it. I'm going to look to Heather again because she's absolutely the font of knowledge on this, but there's going to be a creative skills festival specifically. I mean, it's basically what we've talked to you about today, but a massive event with loads of different people speaking, and a really good opportunity for you to find out more about what's happening in Leeds in terms of developing skills. Heather.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, so the Leeds Creative Skills Festival is going to be a week-long event in November. The aim of the festival will be to like showcase the creative and the cultural offer of the city, and it's to try and like inspire people like to consider a career in Leeds and like the surrounding areas, like to try and get some like retention. There's so much talent in the city, but sometimes I think not everyone can see the potential that we have as a city in terms of like employment and progression, which is a shame, because really there's so much here, there really is. So the festival is just like aiming to kind of showcase that, and it will focus on like careers and opportunities in the sector, and kind of like, but mainly about like your pathways and your skills, and kind of just giving you an overview. And sort of there will be like opportunities for like work experiences and site visits, and there'll be kind of different sort of businesses there at the time. So we're hoping that there'll be a range of kind of from like your SMEs, a kind of smaller business, and even maybe some like freelance individuals to talk to you, all the way through to some of like the bigger and the higher names. So there's a full picture of kind of all sides and ways to do it, because it's more about how to do it than this is something here for you to do, if that makes sense. So we'll also be delivering like sector-led like educational resources to try and help support like good quality careers education, because something that I've found while I've been in my role here is that I did not even realize how many jobs there were in the world. So it's like I didn't really even know my job was a thing until I was doing it, or at least what it entailed. So I think there's so much more to be seen, and there's so many more opportunities that I think a lot of the time people don't even know that they're missing. So I think it will be very interesting. But as I say, so hopefully there'll be an opportunity there for like work experience placements, site visits, and just like good networking and conversation and gaining understanding. And we're also trying to, on the other side of things, offer support for the employers in the sector, such as like with recruiting apprenticeships and kind of having more access to funding for them so they can do that, because there is kind of a disparagement sometimes in terms of the kind of creative and culture sector and how many opportunities, because a lot of the time we're kind of running on less. I think, as Hannah said, we've just come through a very difficult time. Like the pandemic was really hard for a lot of things, like especially, you know, like everything that revolved around live events, which is a lot of what this is. So we're hoping to kind of bring together employers and people who are interested and excited about the sector and maybe have an interest in furthering their career. So there can be a kind of mutual understanding of what it is you maybe need to do or should do, or is kind of the best practice depending on what it is, but also an understanding of what kind of skills there are and what there is to learn, because we are still at a point where we are learning. Entry-level roles are a really funny thing, and sometimes it can be difficult to figure out how to get into them. So I just think that it should be a really good communicative opportunity. And also it's kind of a precursor to activities planned for Leeds 2023, because like our little year of culture, and also beyond into like Bradford 2025 year of culture and things like that. So it should be a really interesting, exciting event. We've got kind of everything still in the planning and in the works, but we're hoping for kind of a lot of interaction, but also some experience, and not just showcasing the work, but showcasing the art and the creativity too. So that one big event is held on Thursday, the 17th of November at the Leeds First Direct Arena. And then the week surrounding that is kind of the week of the Creative Skills Festival, and there'll be lots of other kind of events and kind of everything from talks to workshops. It'll be a mixture of in-person, online, hybrid, and they'll be delivered from a variety of different people on like a variety of different topics. As I was saying, like we'll maybe touch on like freelance kind of work and how to get into that, because that can be a very daunting prospect, but also hear from different employers, hear from also organizations and people that can help you that you don't realize, because as a working person you can sometimes feel alone, like it's just you and all these big companies, but there's organizations and there's help points and there's different kind of people. So it all together, I think it's going to be a really great experience that's just going to be really educational and helpful, and just a showcase of what true great cultural and creative offer Leeds kind of has to show. So yeah, that's the Creative Skill Festival so far.
Brilliant, thanks Heather. Has anybody got any other questions that you'd like to ask? Anything, any burning desires to find out or be signposted to anything?
I almost forgot as well, I do have email address, like if you have any questions or if you have like any say about anything at the festival, I do have an email address that was provided if you want. So if anyone wants to write this down, or maybe should I just bob it in the chat?
Yeah, bob it in the chat and then people can
straight in the chat.
Copy it off. Any questions, comments?
Can I ask what like specific, sorry, you might have said this at the start, but I can't remember now, what your both specific roles are?
Yeah, so I have a really classic local authority job title that just doesn't really mean anything. So I'm principal officer for the culture programs team. It just means that I get put to all sorts of things, but I'm relatively senior within the team. And Heather, do you want to say yours?
I am a project assistant. Well, I am culture programs project assistant, because they love words in titles. So yeah, I am a culture programs project assistant, but mine was just a temporary role. I got this as a kickstart placement back in February.
Okay, nice. Are you going to stay past your 6 months if you can?
I've been like looking at and applying for loads of things, really. Like this is, so I'm in kind of a similar boat. Like this is all as useful to me as it is to everyone else, really. But yeah, I just applied for like a apprenticeship and stuff within the council because they've got so many good opportunities, really, like across the board.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Well, what Heather was saying earlier is if you get even a sort of temporary casual type position, you can still access some of the internal information of jobs that come up, because the way that the authority currently is not able to offer out that many roles, you won't see as many jobs coming out externally as we used to, because first of all, if people's jobs are at risk internally for whatever reason, because they're on a funded project and that's coming to an end, or you know, the service is having to make cuts and is reducing the number of officers, those jobs, any new jobs that are able to be released, go internally first. And so obviously if you're inside, then it makes a big difference to find out about things, but you can get access to that by being sort of, you know, a kind of temporary employee.
Yeah, like foot in the door kind of thing.
Yeah.
Got it. Nice. Good to know.
And I also just wanted to say, if it's okay, the Leeds Culture Skill Festival, I think a lot when you say, oh, the creative and the cultural, it can seem very broad and you kind of don't know what is under the heading per se, or anything specific. But I just wanted to add on that we've kind of narrowed it down into like 9 sections, but they're still like very broad. So this will cover everything from architecture to design, it's craft, TV, film, radio, animation. There's music, theatre, and visual art. There's just there's like museum, libraries, heritage. There's so many different sections within that, like video game design and IT. And I just thought I'd make a point of that, because sometimes you don't realize how much like advertising and marketing is a bit that comes under there as well. And when I thought creative and cultural, my first thought was music, theatre, performance, that kind of thing. Whereas it's really interesting to consider the extension of that into architecture and 3D design and advertising and marketing, because it just kind of shows how already these skills are so transferable and switchable and stuff. But it's also interesting to see the opportunities that something like a hobby like drawing could take you to illustrating, game design, architecture. It was a really interesting thought, so I thought I would share and show the extent of that.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Heather, because there is so much there really is. And like Leeds has got some amazing kind of game startup companies. There's lots of little small companies that don't receive funding from us as an authority, so we don't particularly have a relationship to them because they're able to function commercially completely independently. Our relationship with our team tends to be where where there's kind of public funding and sector support that way, but there are absolutely loads of really brilliant little startups. Whether they have opportunities is another matter entirely, but I really would sort of endorse what Heather's saying to try and like sign up to come along to the festival, because the best way to find out about it is to speak directly to the representatives that will be there from all of those different types of jobs. I think it will blow your mind to be stood in the arena to see the different types of roles that are just, you know, much wider than what you might imagine. And behind all of those, there are loads of administrative and project management roles that also, you know, are needed in order to make a lot of those organisations function. So a way in is often to get an admin role doing something and then find out more and put your skills to other things as you get in. Any other questions? If not, I think we're just about done, Ellie.
Someone has asked, are there any graphic designing jobs? And I don't know if that means like literally are we advertising anything or whether that comes under our heading. I'm not sure what that means. So
yeah, again, I don't know that there's as far as I know, there's nothing specific at Leeds City Council, but again, you'd need to, if you're interested in the council as an employer, then there is a website that you can sign up to job notifications, and then you can find out, and you can limit your search to, you know, if you're interested in being an architect for the council or a legal person, you can filter out what your search is. But nothing that I know of at the moment. But again, if you come along to things like the Creative Skills Festival, then that's where you'd meet other people outside of our organisation who may be interested in sort of taking on different people.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, both. That was really interesting, a great overview of what's happening creatively and culturally in the area. Yeah, just to add to your last point, I would say to everyone in attendance, keep an eye on the jobs boards at your own university. So you'll have some, I imagine, some sort of careers website, whether it's Career Hub, careers portal type thing. I imagine that they are here. And in other universities, you know, we do fill those with relevant jobs as much as possible. Also keep an eye on all of the websites that Heather and Hannah have mentioned, because there's some really great ones. I'm signed up to things like the Art at Leeds newsletter. Loads of great creative opportunities come through that. Keep an eye on Leeds Inspired. The festival sounds fantastic. So it's really great to hear that that's coming. Hopefully other people will attend that too. We'll make sure at the Art Uni that we get that out to all of our students. I would have thought other universities will do the same. So yeah, try and get along to that. If you are looking for creative jobs, in addition to all of the places we've just said, keep an eye on things like LinkedIn, follow the employers that you're interested in. Creative jobs are not only in creative companies. It's important to remember that they are, you know, creativity spans virtually all companies. So keep an eye on LinkedIn. There's a huge hidden job market there. And also websites like Art Jobs. So Art Jobs, you can search by region, you can search part-time, full-time, you can search keywords and things like that. But a lot of different companies do use that, including a lot of the local kind of cultural and creative industries. So I know that things like Leeds Playhouse use that, and you know, Northern Opera and Opera North, there's two different things there, and you know, lots of different creative companies and cultural companies in the area do use that. I think, don't quote me on it, there might be a graphic design job going currently at one of those, and I can't remember which one it is. So yeah, keep an eye on all of those sorts of websites, keep up to date with your job searches and things like that, but just being involved in the local area will really put you ahead in terms of finding jobs and making those connections that are really key within the creative industries. I will just pop into the chat a poll that we have. Sorry, not a poll, a form that we have, which is just a feedback form. We'd really appreciate it if you could provide some feedback on the sessions and generally on the week. It helps us. We do it twice a year, normally kind of just in the new year, and then one in summer. And we try and kind of listen to your comments on that in order to kind of make it the best that it can be. But yeah, thanks ever so much to Heather and Hannah for your time today.
Thanks for letting us come and share some of what we do, and like we said, do get in touch with us, you know, and follow us on Twitter and stuff like that, because there's so much going on that you know, we want other people to be able to benefit from it.
There is loads. It's been really interesting to hear about everything, and hopefully we'll see some of you, if not all of you, at the Careers in Tech talk that is at 3 o'clock today. Same link as I said before. If you want to look back on this, we will get the recording available as soon as possible, and make that available via your kind of individual institutions. But yeah, so thanks everyone for today, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks a lot. Good luck,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.